Hey everybody, welcome to Quadcopter Review. Today we're going to do a little build on this TeenyGenie, and this is a pepperfish style frame. It is 96 millimeters and 1.5 millimeters thick. Now the intent was to use this Super S F3 stack. I ended up using the Super S F4 stack. I'll show you why down the road, but with these stacks you're going to get the flight controller, the all-in-one ESC, and a little bag of goodies. Now I also am using this all-in-one camera VTX. This is a spare that came with Mobula 7, so that's the camera I'm using. I'm also going to be using RacerStar 1103 8000 kV motors that I got for a pretty good price. All the links will be below for this build if you want to check them out. Now another thing I want to talk about is Armattan Productions. Now, we all know Armattan, the regular site and the products they put out, but they also have a site called Armattan Productions. Now, on this site, this is where other people in the community have designed frames, and Armattan actually cuts the frames for people that put their designs up. Now, you can't just free-for-all put a design up. You actually have to put the design, submit the design to them, and it'll be approved, and then your design can be up there and be sold for your price, plus they make a little bit on top of that for themselves for cutting it. So with the site, it's very cool. You can select which prop size you want, and what it'll do is it'll filter it down to that prop size you're looking for, and then you'll have a pretty big laundry list of all these different frames that people have contributed here for sale. I found it to be pretty cool. Check it out if you want, if you're interested in doing any builds. I know some of you guys fly your 1 or 2 quads and that's it, and don't build as much as I do. But it's a really cool resource if you want to get some frames. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started on this guy. And how I do that always is I put the motors on the frame and I go ahead and fit the stack on, just so I can get the direction of the stack and see how the build's going to work out. Now I didn't have a camera mount that was going to work for that Mob 7 all-in-one, so I actually end up designing this canopy here, well, not canopy, camera holder myself, and printed it out in TPU. Idea is it'll fit right on the standoffs, and it's going to be just up and above the flight controller itself and clear out of the way, giving a little room to breathe. It actually just presses right down onto the standoffs, no screws required. And I'm only using 3 of the standoffs, so I'm leaving the back one off of it. So the next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and start tinning things up and getting our plug ready, our XT30. Now that frame was designed for 1S, but I'm going to use it for 2S, so I'm putting this XT30 on. The way I do it is I don't complete, a lot of people like to fill those gaps up completely. I'm just getting a bit in there. I like these half-cut XT30s better than the ones with the full hole to put solder, and I just find those a little bit easier to work with. So pre-tin up our wires, put this all in a little bit 2 times speed just so I don't bore you to death with that. I'm going to head and pre-tin those like that, put that on, get her in place, add the solder, good to go. Same thing we're going to do with our negative lead, pre-tin it up, go ahead and pop it in there. After you're done, you're usually going to want to use some shrink sleeve there, put that around your wires individually, or you can put it around the whole connector if you'd like to. At this point, I'm not going to do that in this part of the video, but that's what you do to cover it up. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to pre-tin our ESCs, and we're going to put our capacitor on there. Now if you're not familiar with capacitors, the white line on the side's a big white line. That's always your negative side. So I kind of rabbit ear it out a little bit, make sure it's going to fit right onto my pins, and I'm going to put this on the bottom side here first. So I'm going to go ahead and solder it down to the board first, knowing that this board is going to get flipped over, so that'll put it above the wires on this particular build. Just depends on the build and how you want to have it sit on your build. Sometimes people even run them off to the side with some extra wire and electrical tape them to their arms. All kinds of different ways you can do that, so I'm not going to claim this is the way. This is just the way I'm doing it on this particular one. So we'll go ahead, pre-tin this guys up a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and mount it down right onto the board. Get one side locked in, Then we'll go ahead and get the other side locked in. If you don't like the way your solder joints look, when you're done, I've found just put a little dab of flux on there and retouch it and you'll get a nice clean ball. But right now we're just getting it in place because we still have wire to solder on top of that right now, so that's not our final look. So same deal with the other side of the positive and negative wires. I'm going to go ahead and pre-tin those up, get as much solder on there as we can because we usually add quite a bit of solder on our hot and negative leads to our power. So here we go. We'll go ahead and mount them down if we don't mess it up. Right there on top. And I usually like to get mine angled out a little bit more. Let's try this again here. There we go. Always nice to use your helping hands to the best of their ability instead of just freewheeling it like I'm doing here. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and mount them down, clean them up a bit, and we'll start pre-tinning up our ESCs. Just a little touch, and you're good to go on each one of those. Get that nice sloppy on there. Get the rhythm down, start getting decent little balls of solder on there. And then of course we'll pre-tin up our motor wires as well. But right now that's what we're going to go ahead and do. Let's clean up that one, that's not very pretty. And we'll go ahead and redo the other side here real quick. Put that in 3x mode so you don't get bored to death on soldering. There we go, all set. So we're pre-tinned up there, ready to go, ready to start putting our motors on. So mounting that all back down to the frame, putting your motors on is pretty simple. Just, solder each wire, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the next thing we're going to do is pre-tin up our camera pads and our receiver pads. On this side we have video in, video out, 5 volt and ground. Over here we have 3 volt, which we don't need, our RS bus and 5 volt then ground. So that's what those pads are. So we'll need to go ahead. Over here, by the way, is a TX and RX on the F3 that is not on the F4. So let's go ahead and tin these up and go ahead and solder those wires into place and come back when that is all set. So we're all set here. We've got all of our camera and everything tinned up and ready to go. Everything is in place. We've got our camera mounted up. As you can see here, we have gone ahead and put all of our wiring on and soldered it on. As I mentioned, I did have to switch the boards out and end up going with the F4 because I damaged the F3. So the idea is to go ahead and put the receiver in piggyback mode. I built that, as you can see right there. We built that so it would fit the receiver right into there as like a backpack. So that's what we went with. As you can see, everything's soldered in and we're pretty much good to go on this. There is our smart audio that we brought around, and that one of course isn't going to be there in a minute when we find out that this board is junk. The F3s have been lately just junk. I wouldn't recommend getting them. Something happened. They were really good, and then all of a sudden they just started being 50% of them just junk. You probably heard Kebab say that, and that's pretty much the truth. F4s seem to be pretty decent for me right now. So at this point we've done our switch out. Like I said, that board ended up having basically what happened was soldering the receiver onto the board. The pad pretty much burnt off the board. Had this happen numerous times on this particular board. You just can't. Initially, you can't get your wire to solder on there. You keep trying, you keep trying, you keep trying, and the next thing you know, it's the pad's completely off the board, and you're just screwed. So I'm going with HQ prop 2 inches there. That's what we end up going with. As you can see here on the board, I end up losing the hot wire for our receiver right here, which makes it useless, and no matter what you do, it just wouldn't go. So I'm keeping it because I don't know, it's not necessarily smoked, but it's pretty worthless now until I can look up maybe a way to fix that. So it's all set, pretty much ready to go. Just need to do a little cleanup and get her here on Betaflight. So the first thing I do in Betaflight is I'm going to type in version enter, and that's going to tell us what kind of board we've got here. So we can see it's an Omnibus F4. And that way we can use that when we flash this, because as you can see, this is 3.2. These are considerably older boards, hence the price right now being cheap. So these boards are flashed with some serious old Betaflight, so we're definitely going to have to fix that. So just in case, I'm going to do a dump. Just in case, I've had boards that don't seem to handle new Betaflights, so I'm going to do a dump of this old one. And what you can do is either you can copy all this and paste it into a doc file, like I've got a running doc file, it's just called dumps, and I put them in there, or you can save to a file and name it. So what we're going to go ahead and name this guy TeenyGenie and go ahead and save it out. As you can see, I have built quite a few quadcopters. Those are, each one of those is a dump for an individual quad. Just the original I keep of them. So just in case, it's a good habit to get into, because if something blows, you can always come back and paste this into your CLI, press enter, then press save, and restore it back to your original setup. So it doesn't take you back to what version you're on, but it does do your setup. So to flash it, make sure you read this when you go into flash firmware. Make sure you have the tools you need if this is the first time you've ever done it. I recommend turning off that top bar that lets you do development versions and stuff, and just do it on proper releases. Find your board and then pick the newest proper release. I'm not going to get into 4.0 on this. There's a lot of things still going on with 4.0, so I'm just going to steer clear of that on this particular build right now. So once you've done that, you're just going to press load from the web, load online, and then you flash the firmware. There is no need to push any boot button on this board. This does take a minute, and what it's going to do is it's going to fully erase the chip, and it's going to rewrite the new version on here. So it takes a little bit of a minute, not too bad. It's going to write it. If this doesn't work for you, likely you're missing some of the tools. There's USB basically USB driver stuff that you need to get that helps your USB talk to your board. So just like I said, make sure you read about that. There's also lots of videos out there on how to set that up. So UART1 is going to be what our receiver's on, so we're going to turn that on. Save and reboot. Go into our configuration. This can handle D-Shot 600, and if you ever wonder about that, you can go to wherever you bought it and bring that up and check out what it's rated for. Like in this case, I got mine from Banggoods, so I can just call up the product on the Banggoods page, take a look here. Get this over here for you. Get this over here. And we can see that it can handle D-Shot 600, so we're good to go there, as I thought. And then you're just going to fill out the basic things you need to do. Make sure you set arming. I forgot mine left at 25%. Make sure you set arming at 180 so you can arm when it's at a weird angle. We don't have barometers and stuff. Turn that off. Give it a name. We are using serial-based S-Bus. We don't have many of these extra things. I'm going to leave anti-gravity and dynamic filters on. Because we're D-Shot 600, we can get a beeper through our motors, so we'll turn that on. And I don't worry about what it says it's going to beep on. On to the next tab. We're going to check out power. I usually put my base at 2.9 and I make my warning at 3.1. Save that out. Now if your battery's not reading correctly, you can go into this area right here and make adjustments. Just read your battery on your charger, plug it in, and then you can make slight adjustments to make your battery work. I got a video on that I'll post on the upper right now. So next thing up is PIDs. I usually just add some super rate, get myself usually right around 900 on the pitch and roll, and then my yaw I keep a little less. Don't use a lot of yaw. As you can see, that's flattening my curve in the middle, and the more of this expo I add, it's also flattening my curve in the middle. I usually go about 25 25 15. The reason why I do that is because I do have a bit of shaky fingers, and as you can see with our curve here, it takes a bit of that middle to be non-responsive, so kind of creates almost like a dead band space in the middle. Move this guy up to 1, and we are pretty good here. Let's go check our filters out, make sure our filters are set, which they are. I only want those 2 on, and we're going to save. Now we can go to our modes. So I use aux1 for ARM, and this side is going to be on, up, and the left is down. So that is an up position, that is a down position. So same goes here with level mode, stable mode. I use that to show you guys when I'm doing filming. I'll have that on. I put that as a switch I have to engage, otherwise I start in air mode. The beeper's on 3. On 2 here, we are going to leave ourselves in air mode when we're, off. So basically when I haven't engaged the switch, it's in air mode. And we are going to put our turtle or flip after crash on number 4. Now I do this, if you get a lot of quads and you follow the same flow, it just makes it where you can copy your model on in my case on my Tyrannus, I can just copy the model, and all these things are pre-set up, and I don't have to get into setting those up inside the radio itself, and I can just follow along. That's why I'm just rambling through it, because I've done it a million times. So we'll go ahead and set the OSD, because that is also blank, and I usually keep my warning, but I only use my warnings for to tell me when the battery is dying. I put it on NTSC, and the reason why is because that is the smallest I'm going to see, and then we'll usually flip it back to auto. But I know that at least in the smallest, I'm actually going to see my OSD. So I flip it to that so I can arrange everything in a place where I know no matter which mode it comes out in PAL or NTSC, I can still see what I'm setting up. So I'm going to use modes. I use timer 2, which tells me the full time. Put a name for the craft on. I'm going to use average cell. I use average cell because I'm a moron and I can't ever remember how much I need for my full voltage on a 3S, 4S, whatever. So but I can remember 3.7. So that helps me out a lot, and that I'm going down to 3.1 before I stop. So 3.4, right? Yeah. So anyway, that's what I do. On the warnings, I shut pretty much everything off, but the total battery critical, and that's pretty much the only warning I need to see. As far as post goes, I want to see the time I got. I want to see the stop voltage of the battery, so when I totally stopped, and then just my black box number if I need to look that up. There's nothing saving black box here, so it really doesn't matter. But I use that in voltage because maybe you've seen it sometimes in my flights. You'll see me click that on and off a couple times, because when you stop, let's say you stop at 2.9, 3.1, let's say, if you flip that off, you'll find that the battery will bounce back most of the time to like 3.4 or something not as damaging as it sounds. So So I use TAER. I know that's not FR Sky default, but that's what I do. It's what I've done since the beginning, and that's what we have. So I'm gonna go ahead and preset that up because I know that's going to happen when I bind the receiver. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and bind the receiver to the radio and come back in here and make sure all of our sticks are working properly. So with that bound up, we're in here and we're going to go back into radio. We're going to move our sticks a bit. We've got throttle, we've got yaw, we've got pitch, and we've got roll. So all is good there. Flick the switch, just make switches are actually doing something, and then I will go back into the modes and we will make sure that our switches are correct. So pretty big deal. Let's do that. So we'll go ahead and check out our arm. Our arm is working. Check out engaging the switch for angle mode, and as you can see, I didn't set an aux file or an aux channel for that, so that wouldn't have worked. So good thing we checked. So set that for 2. It's supposed to be on 2 if I didn't screw it up. And our beep's on 3, and air mode's working as well, and so is beep. And let's check turtle, and turtle's working, and we're good to go. We'll save and come out of there. Now, one important thing to know about this particular build too, you probably noticed we turned that receiver 45 degrees. The receiver. We turned the stack 45 degrees due to the way the mounting on this was. You need to go in and make sure in the yaw, in configuration, you'll see a portion on the right. You want to make sure that yaw that you put in 45 degrees. Or otherwise it's not going to know that you've angled it, and it's going to cause serious problems when you try to fly it. So make sure you do that. Next thing I do is I go into motors and make sure my motors are turning properly. I just use my fingernail. I put the motor down as low as I can go, usually 1007, 1020. Put my fingernail there, have it spin, and see which side it's bumping on. Make sure it's spinning the proper way as you see up at the top for props in. So clockwise, counterclockwise, obviously. Number 4 is a clockwise, number 1's a clockwise. Number 2 and number 3 are counterclockwise. So if they're not spinning correctly, once we've checked them all, what we'll do is we'll take it into BLHeli Suite. On this particular one, if it's a 32-bit ESC, you'll go into BLHeli Suite 32, but this is not, so we'll just go into BLHeli Suite and we'll reverse the motors there. So in my particular case, I believe three motors reversed. Most of the time, the way I wire them up, 1 and 4 are always going to need to be reversed. It's just the way it is. If you're not using preset clockwise and counterclockwise motors, that's how it works out for me every time. So what you do is you open up BLHeli Suite. You're going to read the ESC. You have to have a battery plugged in. Make sure you plug your battery in. Read your setup. What we do then is we are going to update or flash the BLHeli Suite in this particular case, because again, mentioning that this is an old board, these Super S's are older and the firmware on these are old. So we're going to update these all up to the latest version. Takes a little bit of time here to do it. So each one, very, very strange. It's kind of an archaic looking program, as you can see, but each particular ESC needs to be updated individually, although you said update them all. So you kind of have to watch this process on every one. So let's speed this up a little bit. That's much better to see it going that fast. So with all these guys finishing up, the next thing we're going to want to do is reverse those motors that we talked about. So what we're going to do is you unclick all the ones you don't want to change. So we just have number 1 there. Go up to this bar right here, take it from normal to reverse, and then you're going to right it. So you write it, and actually click it, and it's going to write it to the ESC, and we're good. And now we're going to go ahead and uncheck number 1 and check in number 4 and do the same thing. Reverse that guy out and write it to the ESC. And there we go. Now we have two reversed and 2 normal. And it's not necessarily just going to be 2, sometimes it's 3, but that's how you handle that very, very easily. Make sure you double check that that's working out. And here we go. Let's take this guy up and see what it does. Now, just be warned, jump ahead a minute if you don't want to watch this, but because this is a Maiden flight, this is no cuts, this is 1-pack Maiden, no cuts, this is what you get. So what I'm going to do, when I'm checking these guys out for the first time, I bring it out in level mode. I make sure that this just helps me make sure it's not going to go skyrocketing into the sky right when I start it, or fling to the ground. So once that was set, go into air mode, take her nice and easy, just tootle around, make sure that when we make some turns and things that we're not going to have the gyro freak out or anything like that, and bite it. Now this is just going to save you from busting a frame right away, you know, things like that. Gonna check out my roll rates, see if my roll rates are where I want them to be, and I'm not ending up short on my turns and spins, stuff like that. Now I'm running a 350 2S Beta FPV battery on this. Again, it was supposed to be a 1S, but I'm running 2. Total weight ended up being 61 grams. That's with the battery, so really lightweight and very, very nice flyer. Right here off the bat, even just tootling around, it's very much smooth, very much in control, and really, really performs. And you know, I'm pleased. Now this isn't like new science, new thing to the world. I mean, people have been building these little guys for a long, long time, but you know, it's kind of becoming it's kind of reinventing itself. A lot of people getting into this size now, and there's a really good reason why too, and boy have I been missing out. This thing is awesome, very much in control. Even you could see there when I was about to eat it, able to save it without any problem. It really, really flies good, and I'm about to really give it some unleashing, but as you can see too, nice and stable in control too, damn near cinematic speeds. You know, but once we let this guy rip, it rips. Need a little bit of PID work on it. I got a little bit of oscillation there, but not too bad, you know, for right out of the box Maidens. So yeah, I mean, again, all the parts are going to be listed below in the description, and I'll pin it to the top of the comments if you're interested in building anything like this or the parts I used. And you know, I'll just let you check out the rest of it and tell me what you think in the comments, guys. As always, you know, thanks for checking out the channel, and happy flying. Enjoy the rest of the video. One last little tidbit to jump in on. Once we're done here, check out the flight time on this thing. 5 minutes, 16 seconds. Stopping at 7.1 on a 2S. We still could have run it down probably a little bit more. Incredible flight time for this little guy, so very cool factor there too. Hey guys, thanks for stopping by and checking out the Quadcopter review. If you want to see more interesting reviews on FPV related stuff, take a look up here in the old right corner right there. You'll find links to all the rest of my reviews. If you want to get in on some of the best giveaways on YouTube, look over here. Don't forget to subscribe right here on my chin. And if you want to check out my flying only videos separated from the review channel, check that out right here. Thanks for coming. Don't forget to subscribe and happy flying.